Hi guys, in the previous video we had talked about the three states of matter and we had also talked about the two more extended states of matter that were Bose-Einstein condensate and plasma. In this video now we are going to study about the three types of scales which are used to measure the temperature. Also we are going to study about the interconversion of states of matter. So let us begin with the first topic, scales to measure the temperature. Now, in our world, we have three systems or three scales to measure temperature. The normal one which you know, which you use in everyday life is degree Celsius, which you know. It is represented as this. Then there's also one more scale to measure, that is degree Fahrenheit. And there is one more scale which is known as Kelvin. Now, for some it might be new, for some you would be already knowing this. Now Kelvin is one such scale which is accepted worldwide and it is also known as the SI unit of temperature. So whenever we use any calculation in chemistry or in any branch of science, we usually denote the temperature in Kelvin because it is the accepted unit worldwide. One thing to note up here is that you do not use any degree sign when you are writing Kelvin. For example, here it's written 273 Kelvin. We have not put a degree sign. Now let us see what is the correlation between them. Now you will see I have shown here three thermometers, one for degree Celsius, one for Fahrenheit and one for Kelvin. Now in these one they have shown the freezing point of water in all these three scales. We know that the freezing point of water in degree Celsius is 0 degree Celsius. If we represent 0 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit, it is equal to 32 degree Fahrenheit. Similarly, if you represent this in terms of Kelvin, it is equal to 273 Kelvin. So the basic relation there is that 0 degree Celsius is equal to 273 Kelvin. Similarly, for the boiling point of water, 100 degrees Celsius is equal to 212 Fahrenheit and this is equal to 373 Kelvin. Now let us see how do we convert these temperatures. For that we need to understand the mathematical relation between Kelvin and degree Celsius. Now we just saw that 0 degree Celsius is equal to 273.15 Kelvin, which you can also say as 273 Kelvin, because in order to simplify the calculations we take it simply as 273. Now with the help of this relation you can get to the final equation or the mathematical relation, which is equal to that Kelvin is equal to 273.15 plus the degree Celsius. That means if you are given, for example, to convert 25 degrees Celsius to Kelvin, you simply need to substitute this 25 degrees Celsius into this equation. And obviously when you will do that, you will get K is equal to 273.15 plus 25 degrees Celsius, and you would get it like something equal to 298.15 Kelvin. And just the opposite, for example, if you have to convert from Kelvin to degree Celsius, it is just like a mathematical equation. You will take this onto this side, and when you bring this on this side, it will come with a negative sign. So when you are converting 298 to degree Celsius, you will write 298 Kelvin minus 273.15, which will be somewhat equal to 24.85 degrees Celsius. So basically this is how you convert the temperature from Kelvin to degree Celsius or from degree Celsius to Kelvin. So whenever you convert, you simply need to keep this equation in mind, and then you can simply solve it like any simple mathematical equation. Now let us study about the change in the states of matter. We know that there are the three states, solid, liquid and gas. Can we change them or not? Now here I have shown you one line on which I have shown the temperature at 0 degree Celsius, at 100 degrees Celsius and in between. Now I have discussed the case of water over here. We know that at 0 degrees water exists in the form of ice, Similarly, at 100 degrees Celsius, it exists in the form of steam or water vapor. Any temperature in between, water is present in the normal liquid form that you see. Now, suppose we want to convert any of these states into each other, that can be achieved by two ways. It can be done either by the change in temperature or by the change in pressure. These are the two basic points which are involved in interconversion of states. So we'll be talking about each one of them. In this video, we will be strictly talking about by the change in temperature, like how can we change the state of matter by changing the temperature. We'll be discussing the change in pressure in the next video. Now let us see how do we do that. Now see, this is a simple diagram which might not be new to you. Like for example, when you change a solid into liquid state, that is when you melt it up, you have to heat it. Similarly, when you have to bring it back to the solid state, you have to cool it up. These are the basic things that you would have done in class, let's say 6th and 7th. And similarly, when you change a liquid state into the gaseous state, again you are heating it up, and if the reverse process, you have to cool up. Now these all four processes have the specific names. For example, when there is a change in solid state to the liquid state, that is known as melting. The other scientific term for is that fusion. Similarly, when you freeze back or you get back from the liquid state to the solid state, that is known as freezing. When you go to the gaseous state from the liquid state, that is known as evaporation, and obviously just the opposite of it is known as condensation. Now all of this is being done by the change in temperature. By heating we mean that we are increasing the temperature, and by cooling we mean that we are decreasing the temperature. Now we need to understand one or two more terms specific in this. Let us see what are that. Okay, so in this one we are going to talk about latent heat of fusion. Now what is this latent heat of fusion? Let us first of all understand this diagram, then we'll get to this. Now in this diagram you will see that we are basically melting the ice, and with the help of a thermometer we are checking the temperature at which it melts. That means we are checking its melting point, at what temperature is it melting. Now when you will actually carry out this experiment in the lab, you will notice that by the time this ice is melting up, the temperature is constant at 0 degrees Celsius, and this temperature is constant till whole of this ice has been melted into water. Only then the temperature will start rising. जब तक सारी आइस मेल्ट नहीं हो जाती तब तक ये टेम्परेचर कांस्टेंट ही रहेगा. Now why is that so that the temperature is becoming constant in between? It is because at that particular moment, that means at the melting point of this ice, all the energy that we are providing is getting used up in overcoming the forces of attraction. For example, in this ice cube, we know that in solid there are very strong forces of attraction. So when the melting point of this ice is reached, all of this heat energy is getting used up in overcoming these forces of attraction. No heat is getting used up for raising the temperature. It is just used for breaking up these forces of attraction so that the solid changes into liquid. And the moment whole of this ice has melted to form water, now the temperature will start rising up. So what is this latent heat? Latent heat is that heat which basically goes up to remove or to overcome the forces of attraction. Latent in Greek basically means hidden. So we usually say that the heat is getting hidden somewhere, it is not coming out in the form of rising of temperature. Where is it going? It is going up in overcoming the forces of attraction. So that is known as latent heat, and we use this term of fusion because this is to denote that this heat is basically getting used up in the process when we are changing a solid to liquid. Similarly, if we talk about a more specific or precise definition of latent heat of fusion, you will find it in many of the books that latent heat of fusion is defined as the amount of heat energy required to change 1 kg of solid to liquid at atmospheric pressure. This is known as the latent heat of fusion. Now, let us see about latent heat of vaporization. Now, if you would have become clear with the concept of latent heat, then I'm sure you can guess here what would we mean by latent heat of vaporization. Again, just the process becomes different, the concept remains the same. Here we are talking about vaporization, that means from the liquid state we are moving to the gaseous state. Latent heat means hidden heat. So when we are boiling up this water, again the temperature in the thermometer will become constant at what? At the boiling point of water, which is equal to 100 degrees Celsius. So till the time whole of this water has evaporated and changed into the gaseous form, the temperature is going to remain constant at 100 degrees Celsius. When the water is evaporated, then the temperature will start rising. So where did this heat go again? The heat is getting used up in overcoming the forces of attraction between the particles of water. So this is latent heat of vaporization. Now if you come back to this specific definition of latent heat of vaporization, you can define it in the similar way just like we did for this one. Can you think how this definition is going to change? Try to do it on your own. Now let me tell you how it will change. It will be the amount of heat energy that is required to change 1 kg of what? Liquid into vapor form at atmospheric pressure is known as latent heat of vaporization. Rest of it will remain the same. This is the specific scientific notation of definition of writing latent heat of vaporization or fusion. Now I have discussed here some very important and very basic questions which have been asked in the exams many a times in this form or the other form, but the main idea of these questions, the main answer to these questions remains almost the same. So once you know the trick to writing these questions, what are the key terms to writing these questions, you will always fetch full marks. Now let us see what the question is. First question I have taken over here is, why is ice more effective in cooling than water at 0 degrees Celsius? Now first of all we need to understand that at 0 degrees Celsius, what do we say? Is the water in the form of ice, that is solid, or it is in the form of liquid? If you are saying ice or if you are saying water, then both the answer are wrong. We say that they both are in equilibrium with each other. By equilibrium we mean they both are coexisting with each other at 0 degrees Celsius. If at 0 degrees Celsius we go above, then it is in the form of water only. If we go below, then it is in the form of ice, or that is solid only. Now why is basically ice more effective in cooling? Now what happens is, when for example if you apply ice onto your hand, this ice will absorb heat energy from where? From your hand. Now hand can be considered as your surrounding. So when this ice is absorbing energy, where is this energy going? This energy is going up in overcoming the forces of attraction to change from solid to liquid. That means we are talking about latent heat. And latent heat of what? Fusion or vaporization? Fusion, because we are talking about the change in state from solid to liquid. So this ice basically absorbs the heat energy in the form of latent heat of fusion from our hand or from our surrounding. So obviously when a substance or a material is absorbing energy from the surrounding is going to become cool. So our hand basically feels cool. So that is why we say that ice is more effective in cooling it than water. Now if we talk about the key terms over here that you need to write in answer is that latent heat of fusion. You need to write specifically that ice is absorbing what? It is absorbing heat energy from the surroundings or the hand in the form of latent heat of fusion. If you forget to write this term, then you will lose marks. So you need to write this term, that is latent heat of fusion. So that is why you feel cool. Now there's one more example over here. This says as, why does steam causes severe burns than boiling water? Now if you would have understood properly the previous question, I'm sure you will be able to answer this question on your own. Now let me try to explain this up. Now we are talking about steam and we are talking about boiling water. Again, these both are basically water only, that is H2O. But we are considering them at 100 degree Celsius. And again at 100 degree Celsius, we will say that both of these are coexisting with each other. That means some amount is there in the form of boiling water, some amount is there in the form of steam. Now what happens is, at 100 degrees Celsius, water is absorbing what? It is absorbing heat in the form of what? Latent heat of vaporization in order to overcome the forces of attraction, and it changes up into steam. Now basically when the particles have changed from water to steam, the particles of steam have comparatively more energy than the particles of normal boiling water, because they have this extra energy in the form of latent heat of vaporization. Water had initially some energy, then it accepted, or basically it absorbed more energy in the form of latent heat of vaporization, and it got converted into steam. So basically we say that steam particles have more energy than the normal boiling water. So this much is clear. Now you imagine that suppose suppose this is a hand that I'm showing over here. Suppose this steam touches your hand. What will happen? This extra energy, latent heat of vaporization, will be released by the steam particles on your hand, and as a result it will cause much more severe burn than that of boiling water. It is because the steam particles have more energy than water. So again, the key term that you need to mention up here is that the steam particles have more energy than the normal boiling water, because they have absorbed heat energy in the form of latent heat of vaporization. So when this extra energy is released onto the hand, it causes more severe burns. So this is how you basically talk about latent heat of fusion and latent heat of vaporization. Until now we have discussed about the change in the state of matter, about solid, liquid and gas, but we had not yet talked about how do we change from solid to gas or from direct gas to solid. This we will be discussing in the next video. Till then, do revise about this one and be clear with your concepts of latent heat of vaporization and latent heat of fusion. Thank you.